Happy Pride Month, everybody! Now that it is officially the queerest month of the year, we're going to get a lot of people asking, what does this mean? What is this sexuality? And a lot of other types of questions. Because of that, as well as my ever-increasing need to educate people, I've compiled some of the most commonly used terms in a sort of ABCs of the LGBT. This video is for people who may be new to the community or may not understand much of queer communities. Consider this like your encyclopedia. I also want to include 3 pseudo-communities that claim to be a part of the LGBT community when they are not, but we'll save those for the end. Something I want to get out of the way before we start is that this video is by no means a political video, so I will not be discussing subjects such as trans people in sports. If you want a video about those kinds of subjects, I suggest you search elsewhere. This is strictly an educational video to help people understand the most commonly used terminology of the queer community. Now that we got the preamble out of the way, let's get on to the amble, starting with
A is for
someone who is agender does not feel like they have any gender whatsoever or do not connect with other genders. Much like other genders, there is an agender flag. The agender flag consists of 2 black bars, 2 light gray bars, 2 white bars, and 1 mint green bar. The black bar represents a lack of gender, the gray represents partial gender, and the green represents the opposite of lavender, which is often used to represent androgyny. Allosexual is a sister term to alloromantic, but represents a person who experiences sexual attraction, with this attraction possibly being towards any sex or gender. Someone who is allosexual may or may not experience romantic attraction. Allosexual and alloromantic are most commonly used in the asexual and aromantic communities, so they're not super common terms, but they're common enough that I wanted to include them. An ally is a person who does not identify as queer in any way, but still supports the queer community, especially in terms of equal rights and equal care. Allies actually have a flag, consisting of black and white stripes, with an uppercase A in rainbow. The black and white stripes represent someone who is cisgendered and heterosexual, the opposite of the classic rainbow flag, while the rainbow matches the traditional rainbow flag, and the A shape represents the word ally. Androgynous is a term used to describe someone who exhibits either both male and female traits, or someone who appears very gender neutral. Oftentimes, people who appear androgynous tend to be non-binary, but this is not always the case, so when in doubt, ask. Aphobia is the strong hatred towards members of the asexual and or aromantic communities. For example, some queer folk don't believe that asexuals and aromantic people should be a part of the LGBT community since they haven't been oppressed as much. Others may not believe that asexuality or aromanticism is real or is a choice. In some extreme cases, some people have claimed that asexuals are pedophiles in disguise, all of which are completely untrue. Aphobia tends to be a bit more common online and isn't talked about as often as, say, homophobia and especially transphobia. While measures have been taken to limit aphobia, it is still a prevalent issue among asexual and aromantic communities. An aroace person is someone who identifies as both asexual and aromantic. Just like with asexuality and aromanticism, aroace is on a spectrum. People who are aroace can still have sexual and or romantic attraction, it just may be more limited. The aroace flag is goldenrod, yellow-orange, white, sky blue, and navy blue. An aromantic person, or an aro, is someone who has limited to no romantic attraction. Aromanticism exists on a spectrum. Some people feel romantic attraction in certain situations, others may only feel it after getting to know someone. Some may even be repulsed by the idea of romance. The aro flag consists of lime green, mint green, white, light gray, and black. The green represents the opposite of red, which is often associated with romance. The black and gray represent the sexual identities of aro people, and the white represents platonacy. Here's a little fun fact I found about the aro flag. The original version of the most commonly used aro flag originally had a yellow stripe in it, but it was changed to white because it caused sensory issues in certain people. ASAB is an acronym, standing for Assigned Sex at Birth. This represents the sex that a person was born as. There are 3 variations of the acronym: AFAB, AMAB, and AAB. AFAB is short for assigned female at birth, AMAB is short for assigned male at birth, and AAB is short for assigned intersex at birth. An asexual, or ace, much like an aro person, is someone who has limited to no sexual attraction. Just like aromanticism, asexuality exists on a spectrum. The spectrum is pretty much identical to the aro spectrum, just replacing romantic orientation with sexual orientation. Even the flag is similar, just replacing the green stripes with a purple stripe. The aro and ace communities tend to be close-knit due to their similarities and are often confused for each other. Always remember, hetero is little to no romantic attraction, and ace is little to no sexual attraction.
B is for
Bears are masculine-appearing gay men. Typically, these men are heavy with large amounts of hair. Some bears put an emphasis on hypermasculinity, occasionally to a toxic level, and some may have distaste for men on the opposite end of the spectrum, known as twinks. Binding is the act of flattening the chest opted in by some non-binary and trans people. A binder is a super tight top used to flatten the chest. It kind of looks a little like a cropped tank top. Some may even use things like ace bandages, but this method is far more dangerous than a traditional binder as it may constrict breathing and blood flow to the chest and breasts. If you do choose to bind, use something like a binder, a compression top, or a sports bra. Bisexuality/biromanticity, often shortened to just bi, is a person who's attracted to two or more genders. Bi folk are often attracted to men and women, but some are also attracted to other genders as well. The bi flag, which is one of the oldest pride flags, consists of a pink, blue, and purple stripe. The pink represents attraction to women, the blue attraction to men, and the purple attraction to both or others. Many people tend to confuse bi, pan, omni, and polysexualities, and in fairness, they are pretty easy to get confused, especially for newcomers. The best way to remember what bi is that people who are bi are attracted to at least two genders. Remember, bi equals two. A butch refers to a woman, not always but is often a lesbian, who presents themselves in a masculine way while not necessarily identifying as male. Some aspects of butch culture include short hair, men's jeans, flannel shirts, and suits. Butch women often break the gender binary and conventional gender roles, and was, and still is, often seen as a form of feminist empowerment.
C is for
Someone who is cisgendered, often shortened to just cis, is someone who identifies with their birth sex. For example, someone who is born male identifying as male. Cisgendered people tend not to alter their body using hormones and/or surgery unless they have a medical reason to do so. Cis people can still be queer, as this term only describes their gender. Something I do want to address is that some people, mostly cisgendered people, will often say that the term cis is a slur. It is not a slur and is often used in a similar context to terms such as non-binary and transgender, aka they are used to discuss someone's gender and not necessarily in a derogatory way. Cishet is a shortened way of saying cisgendered and heterosexual. These are people who do not identify as queer in any way. Someone who is closeted has not told many, if any, people about their orientation. There are a variety of reasons as to why someone may choose to stay in the closet. The most common is for fear of rejection. This is especially true among queer youth, as they often fear either being bullied or abused by their parents or peers, or even kicked out or sent to conversion therapy to straighten them out. In some countries, being queer is a punishable offense and is sometimes even punishable by death. Some people may fear losing their jobs or suffering workplace discrimination. Some may have internalized queer phobia, especially if they grew up in a particularly queer-phobic time. And finally, just because they're queer doesn't mean they want to share that with everyone else. Basically, there are a lot of reasons as to why someone may choose to stay in the closet, and never, by any means, force someone to come out if they are not comfortable. When someone comes out of the closet, they reveal to people their sexuality and/or gender. Similar to why some people choose to stay in the closet, there are multiple reasons as to why some people choose to come out. They may feel pride and/or courage to reveal their true selves. This tends to be the most common reason. Some may feel overwhelmed or pressured, and they feel like they need to come out. Others may try to destigmatize certain identities. And always remember, if you are queer and you don't want to come out, you don't have to. You should stay in the closet until you are comfortable enough to come out, and only you can decide when that is. Cross-dressing is the act of someone wearing clothes designed for the opposite sex or gender. For example, a man or male wearing a dress. This is often just an expression of clothing and nothing more. The most well-known form of cross-dressing is drag, where men dress in dresses and women dress in suits. Trans people may also choose to cross-dress in order to feel more comfortable with their gender. Cross-dressing is not exclusive to the queer community, as anyone can cross-dress for any reason they choose.
D is for
A dead name is an old name that a person goes by. Usually this dead name is a gendered name that was given to someone at birth, and a person may change it to conform to their current gender. Referring to someone using their old name is called dead naming and is often considered rude and disrespectful. Demigender, often shortened to just demi, is used for a person who does not fully identify with a specific gender. Some people identify with multiple genders, others may identify somewhat with one gender and agenderism. Again, it's a spectrum. The demi flag is gray, light gray, lemon yellow, and white. Drag is a performative art where gender traits are exaggerated and highlighted. Drag queens are typically gay men who dress in elaborate dresses and leotards with feather boas, huge wigs, and tons of makeup, among other hyper-feminine outfits and accessories. This look is also known as drag. Drag kings are typically gay women who dress in elaborate, albeit not quite as elaborate as drag queens, outfits with accessories consisting of things such as bow ties and fake facial hair. Drag started off in New York as ball culture. Ball culture was where primarily young Black and Latino queer folk would walk, dance, and pose in competitions in order to win trophies, prizes, and or the respect in the community. If you want to learn more about ball culture, I highly recommend the film Paris is Burning. It shows ball culture in 1980s New York and goes into far more detail from people who were actually there.
F is for
A femme is typically a lesbian woman who expresses themselves in a feminine way and is often considered the opposite of butch. Femmes often have long hair and wear dresses, as well as other feminine styles of clothing and accessories.
G is for
Someone who is gay is attracted to people of the same sex and or gender. Often this term is used by gay men, but some gay women prefer it over the term lesbian. Historically, the classic rainbow flag was used to represent the gay community, but now represents the queer community as a whole. Gay men have their own flag. The flag consists of stripes of teal, aqua, mint, white, periwinkle, azure, and navy. The colors have nearly the exact same meaning as the lesbian flag, and the colors were chosen to be an antithesis to the warm and feminine colors of the lesbian flag. Gender is the spectrum to which a person identifies as. Even though the terms are used interchangeably, gender does differ from sex, as gender is a social construct. There are many genders out there, and people may have more than one. Gender can also change or be non-existent for some. It really comes down to how a person identifies and expresses themselves. This can be done via gender-affirming care, the use of pronouns, and wearing clothing that matches one's desired gender, among other things. Gender-affirming care is any sort of medical, psychological, legal, or spiritual treatment a person seeks in order to feel more comfortable with their gender. Examples include, but are not limited to, changing one's name, transitioning, talk therapy, and changing one's birth sex on legal documents. The gender binary is a social construct that fits gender into two rigid categories, male and female. Some identify within this binary and others don't. Gender dysphoria is the intense feeling of discomfort a person may feel surrounding their gender or sex. It is most commonly seen in pre-transition trans people, but non-binary people can feel gender dysphoria as well. It's important to note that not all trans people experience gender dysphoria. There's also a term to describe intense feelings of pride and happiness surrounding one's gender euphoria. Someone who is gender fluid has their gender change over time. A gender fluid person's gender may change daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, or inconsistently. Some gender fluid people may bounce between the gender binary, while others may venture into non-binary territory. Gender fluid also has its own flag, featuring stripes of bubblegum pink, white, bright violet, black, and royal blue. The pink represents femininity, the white all genders, violet a combination of male and female, black an absence of gender, and royal blue masculinity. Genderqueer is an umbrella term that incorporates all gender expressions that do not align strictly within the gender binary. This can include non-binary, which it is often used interchangeably with, transgender, gender fluid, and many others. The genderqueer flag is lavender, white, and lime green.
H is for
Someone who is heterosexual or heteroromantic, or straight, is attracted to people of the opposite sex or gender. So, men attracted to women and women attracted to men. Straight people can still be queer, as being straight only refers to their sexuality rather than their gender. Homophobia is the extreme distaste and hatred of primarily gay and lesbian people, but the term has also been used to describe the hatred for the LGBT as a whole. Examples include the prosecution of gay couples, denying the right to marriage of a same-sex couple, sending gay youth to conversion therapy, and censorship of gay media. While in the Western world homophobia is on a decline, it is still a prevalent issue among countries such as Russia and Iran. Hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, is the use of artificial hormones such as testosterone and estrogen. HRT is not exclusively used by the queer community. However, it is often used by trans folk to transition between sexes in a less invasive way. HRT is often used prior to surgery. However, not every trans person chooses or can use hormones and/or surgery to transition. HRT is often used in combination with other forms of gender-affirming care to help trans people transition.
I is for
An intersex person is someone who was born with characteristics of either both or neither sexes. Examples include people being born with both genitalia, Klinefelter syndrome, where someone is born with XXY chromosomes, and Turner syndrome, where someone is born with a singular X chromosome. Keep in mind is that not everybody chooses to identify within the community on that alone. It's really up to personal preference. People who are intersex may also identify with other facets of the LGBT, including being non-binary or being gay. The intersex community also has their own flag, a yellow flag with a purple ring. The purple ring represents wholeness and completeness and the right to be who you want to be. Yellow and purple are also complementary colors. Not sure if they actually mean anything, but I just want to mention that.
L is for
A lesbian is a woman who is attracted to other women. This also includes non-binary and trans women. This is essentially the female equivalent to gay, although some lesbians prefer to be referred to as gay. The lesbian flag consists of a dark orange, light orange, white, mauve, and dark magenta stripes, with the dark orange representing gender nonconformity, light orange community, white unique relationships to womanhood, orchid love and sex, and dark magenta femininity. LGBT, LGBTQ, and LGBTQIA+, and their variants are all acronyms to represent the community. LGBTQ+ tends to be the most commonly used. I personally prefer LGBT simply just because it's easier for me to remember and say. The acronym is short for lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer questioning, and the plus represents others not included within the letters. The I and A at the end of the extended acronym means intersex and either asexual, aromantic, or agender, depending on who you ask. Other acronyms have been proposed, but none of them have replaced the good old LGBT.
N is for
Neopronouns are a set of pronouns that differ from she, her, he, him, or they, them. Some include, but are not limited to, fey, fair, z, zim, or e, eem. A person who is non-binary, sometimes referred to as an NB, is a person whose gender somewhat or completely falls out of the traditional gender binary. Non-binary people can include those who are agender, demigender, or genderfluid, among other gender identities. The non-binary flag includes stripes of lemon yellow, white, bright violet, and black, with yellow representing outside the binary, white all genders, purple the fluidity of gender, and black being the absence of gender. Non-binary is sometimes also placed under the transgender umbrella, but some NB people choose not to identify with this umbrella. Some NBs also take actions such as changing their name or using a binder to align closer to their gender.
O is for
Someone who is openly queer is someone who has come out and is open about their identity. Many openly queer folk share their experiences coming out as well as being queer, often inspiring others to feel more comfortable with their identities. To be outed means that someone has revealed your identity without your permission. This can either be in person or online. This is seen as super inappropriate and can be dangerous for the queer person in question. So, yeah, never out someone without their permission.
P is for
Pansexuality/panromanticism, often shortened to just pan, is the attraction to anyone regardless of sex or gender. This is another term that tends to get confused with bi, omni, and poly. The main difference between those and pan is that someone who's pan tends to not consider sex or gender important when finding a partner. The pan flag consists of magenta, yellow, and sky blue stripes. The magenta represents attraction to women, the yellow attraction to NBs, and the sky blue attraction to men. Platonic is a non-romantic and non-sexual relationship. This term is not exclusively used within the queer community and really is just another way of saying friendship. A person who is polyamorous is attracted either sexually or romantically to multiple people at once. A polycule is a group of people in a polyamorous relationship. Polycules come in many sizes, but typically have at least 3 people in them. Pride flags are symbols used to represent many queer communities. Most pride flags consist of 3 or more stripes, with the color of those stripes usually having meaning tying back to the community, although not all pride flags have clear meanings, or the meaning is left up to interpretation. Pride Month takes place every year in June. This is because of the Stonewall riots taking place in late June. Pride Month incorporates parades, festivals, marches, and other forms of celebration. In the modern day, Pride Month is more to celebrate how far we've come as the queer community in terms of acceptance and span. Unfortunately, Pride Month also tends to bring along rainbow capitalism, which is something we'll touch upon in a little bit. Pronouns are a type of speech that replace a noun such as a name. Everyone has pronouns, but for some people, said pronouns do not align with their birth sex. Some people may choose to use the opposite sex as pronouns. Some may opt for gender-neutral pronouns. Some may even use multiple pronouns, etc. Some examples of pronoun sets include they, them, he, she, and she, they. It's important to use a person's preferred pronouns, as it's a sign of respect, and if you're unsure about a person's pronouns, ask. Using the wrong pronouns for someone is known as misgendering, and is often considered very rude, especially when done intentionally. If you are someone who goes by a different pronoun set than your assigned birth sex, you can usually find pronoun pins that display said pronoun set. Puberty blockers are a special type of hormone that temporarily pauses puberty. These hormones are only effective for people who have just started or are currently going through puberty. Just like HRT, these are not exclusively used by the trans community. However, these can be used by prepubescent and pubescent trans youth to allow them to experience puberty as the opposite sex.
Q is for...
Queer is a former slur that has been reclaimed by the LGBT community. It is a blanket term to refer to any person who is not cisgendered and/or heterosexual. Queer is also a term used by people to identify within the LGBT but may not be comfortable revealing their sexuality and/or gender. Queerphobia is a blanket term that covers all forms of extreme hatred towards any queer community. Queerphobia includes homophobia, transphobia, and aphobia, among others. A person who is questioning is unsure about their sexuality and/or gender. Many people who are questioning are exploring their identity, coming of age, or just learning about the queer communities. Not every person goes through a questioning phase, and many people may question their gender and/or sexuality for many years. Who knows? Maybe you watching this video are questioning right now. And if you are loved no matter where you fall under. And if you're not, I probably look really dumb right now.
R is for...
Rainbow capitalism is when companies, come June, suddenly start caring about the queer community without actually caring about the queer community. Examples include suddenly selling queer merch, especially ones that only have rainbows and no other pride flags, changing their social media profile pictures to rainbow variants on June 1st, and then reverting them back to normal on July 1st, and profiting off of queer merch without actually donating any of the profits to queer organizations and charities. This is especially true with companies that have been called out in the past for being queer-phobic, with Disney usually being the prime example of this. Rainbow capitalism is not always seen as a bad thing, however. It has helped bring awareness and acceptance to the queer community, as well as allowed lower-income queer folk to get pride merch at stores such as Walmart. With this being said, it does tend to tokenize the community, and big corporations only jump on the pride bandwagon for good PR. Romantic attraction is the desire to be with someone on a romantic level. It does differ from sexual attraction, and a person's sexual and romantic attraction can differ.
S is for...
Sex means what a person was born as, based on characteristics such as genitalia, face shape, chromosomes, predominant sex hormones, etc. Unlike gender, which is often used interchangeably with, there are three sexes: male, female, and intersex. Male is a person born with XY sex chromosomes, a penis, and testosterone being the predominant sex hormone. Female is a person born with XX chromosomes, a vagina, and estrogen being the predominant sex hormone. Intersex is a semi-loosely defined sex where a person can be born with multiple variations of hormones, sex chromosomes, and genitalia. If you want to know more about intersex, go back to the I section of this video. A sex change operation is a series of surgical procedures that allow a person to transition sexes. Procedures include reshaping of the chest, breast removal, facial feminization, and breast implants, among many others. Sex change operations are typically undertaken by trans people, especially those on hormones or who suffer from gender dysphoria, although this is not always the case, as not every trans person undergoes surgery. A person's sexual orientation is who they are attracted to, if anyone, on a sexual level. A person's sexuality can differ from their romantic orientation. Some people may be attracted to only one gender, some many, others none. The Stonewall Inn was a popular gay bar in New York City that was raided on June 28, 1969. This raid sparked a riot that lasted for 6 days and sparked the LGBT movement as we know it today, with gay rights to Pride Month to the original Pride flag all originating from the Stonewall riots.
T is for...
A person who is transgender or trans is someone whose sex and gender differ. Most transgender people typically identify with the opposite gender on the gender binary, although trans people can also identify as non-binary as well. Many trans people opt to transition using hormones and surgery, although not every trans person does. Most of the people who transition suffer from gender dysphoria. Trans people may also opt to cross-dress, change their name, and use different pronouns. The trans flag consists of 2 sky blue stripes, 2 pastel pink stripes, and 1 white stripe. The sky blue represents the stereotypical color for baby boys, the pastel pink represents the stereotypical color for baby girls, and the white represents everyone in between or outside of that binary. A TERF, short for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist, is a third wave / radical feminist who does not believe that trans women are women, but rather just men playing dress up. Many TERFs do not believe that transgender people deserve rights, and trans women do not belong in women's spaces such as bathrooms. These people are often extremely transphobic and have even considered the term to be a slur. Much like cisgendered, it is not. Transitioning is the act of changing one's sex. This is often done via hormones and/or surgery and is most often done by trans people. Again, remember, not everyone transitions, and everyone who does has different experiences. Transphobia is the extreme hatred towards trans people. Examples include, but sadly are not limited to, denying a trans person the use of their chosen bathroom, frequent slur usage, and not allowing them to participate in sports, and saying that a trans person is just going through a phase. Sadly, this appears to be an uptick in transphobia in the US, where lawmakers are targeting trans people specifically in their quest to spread their conservative morals to the people of this country. It's very sad. Twinks are typically young gay men who appear more feminine than their bear counterpart. This includes having limited to no body hair, a slim physique, and flamboyancy. They are considered the opposite to bears. While this may be the end of the terminology, there's still one more thing I want to address. There are 3 communities who claim to be a part of the queer community who are very much not, and I want to mention them here to help alleviate confusion. The first group is known as the MAP community. MAP is an acronym short for Minor Attracted Person. These are pedophiles who are trying to rebrand themselves under the queer umbrella to avoid getting attacked for their attractions. Even though MAPs claim to never harm minors, it's still pretty disgusting that there's a whole rebrand for a movement for pedos. To make matters even worse, some people claim that certain facets of the LGBT, such as asexuals and trans people, are pedos in disguise. So this isn't helping. The next group I want to call out is the straight pride movement. This is a counter movement where cishet people, usually extremely conservative, attempt to instill fear and hate out of jealousy of the queer pride movement. Essentially, it's queer phobes who get together because they're tired of queer folk constantly shoving their identities in our face while doing exactly that. Keep in mind that not every cishet person believes in straight pride. There are still plenty of cishet allies out there. This is just a vocal minority. Actually, while writing the script, I found a pretty funny article by the Burnett Foundation called 10 Things to Say to a Straight Pride Supporter. It's pretty funny and even offers some sources surrounding the prosecution of queer people. I'll go ahead and link it in the video description if you want to go check it out. And finally, we're finishing off with arguably one of the most depraved communities, the zoophile / Zeta community. A zoophile is a person who has sexual attraction to animals. Yes, you heard that right. I have heard some zoophiles compare themselves to the queer community, and even comparing their struggles to that of Stonewall. Ugh. Regardless of what these people may say, it's sick to have sex with someone or something that cannot consent, whether that be children or animals. If MAPs are not accepted within the queer community, then neither should zoophiles. I also just want to state this more for the record. It's not really relevant to the queer community that much, but there is a difference between a furry, a zoophile, and a zoo sadist, but that is a topic for another day and another video. And there you have it, a list of some of the most commonly used terms in the queer community. Hopefully this video helped you learn more about the community and maybe even helped you come to terms with your own sexuality and gender. I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace, love, and RORXD, and see you guys in the next video.